Boomers and Straights, Nameless Potato here. Welcome to the 7th episode of an educational series here on the channel, Aequalitatem, an LGBTQ plus educational video series. This series will consist of 8 videos covering the following topics: LGBTQ plus history, sexualities, romantic identities, gender identities, queer representation, relationships, LGBTQ plus discrimination, gatekeeping, and how to be a good ally. This episode, we will be talking about discrimination, the cause of it, examples of discrimination, discrimination in the LGBTQ plus community, gatekeeping, and the negative effects of gatekeeping. The goal of this series is to educate people about the LGBTQ plus community, to encourage acceptance and understanding of those who may be considered different than the norm. The name of the series, Aequalitatem, means equality in Latin, and that is what we're promoting in the series. This series is written by an American, and therefore will be focusing more from an American point of view. All resources used in these videos will be available down below, so I encourage you to check them all out for yourselves. I will also be doing my best to answer any questions you put in the comment section below. There will be some triggering topics in this video, so we'll be putting trigger warnings before the parts, discussing them with a timestamp to skip to avoid it. Discrimination. It's a word we hear thrown around a lot nowadays. Discrimination is defined as prejudice or prejudicial outlook, action, or treatment. Depressingly, discrimination is everywhere in our current lives, from racism to sexism. Discrimination comes from the human instinct of wanting to be around similar people, whether it be people with the same skin color, or same sexuality, or same political views. Discrimination can also be passed down from parental figures for the same similar reason. As humans, we are often fearful of something that is not ourselves. This doesn't have to apply to other races or other beliefs. The supernatural is a good example of this. Whether or not it exists is an argument for another time, but humans are often scared of the supernatural because it's different. Monsters and spirits aren't human and considered dangerous, whether they're malevolent or not. Stereotyping also plays a part in discrimination. Stereotyping is the act of grouping a group of people together into one simple narrative or idea. It is boiling down the intricate and unique personality of a person into a set list of traits because of one aspect of themselves. For example, if someone is blonde, they are often considered dumb, despite hair color having no connection to intelligence. Stereotyping can be really harmful to groups. Looking at another example, a lot of people believe that old people with darker skins are criminals and thieves, despite it not being true at all. If a part of a group is one way, then the rest of the group gets lumped into this category as well. The gotcha community is another great example of this. There is a small 1% of the gotcha community that posts inappropriate content, and the internet decided to lump all gotcha YouTubers who use gotcha as a platform to make videos, into this category. Most of the gotcha community uses this platform to make fun, entertaining stories that explore a number of ideas. The gotcha apps also let more people, including myself, start creating safely, as creating gotcha videos does not need your voice, name, or face. The internet took the gotcha community and judged it on a small number of creators. They created a stereotype of all gotcha YouTubers make inappropriate content, which it simply is not true. Creating a negative stereotype of a certain group of people can be a key point in discrimination against the group. While there are many different ways people can be discriminated against, there are some more common ones. According to the National Association of Japanese Canadians, there are 5 main ways discrimination can happen. There are harassment, wage discrimination, discrimination in hiring, being fired, and discrimination in housing. Harassment can develop in many ways, from inappropriate jokes to name-calling based on someone's race, sex, gender, sexual orientation, or color, and all can be equally damaging. Wage discrimination is exactly how it sounds. An employer offers a lower wage to someone just because they are part of a marginalized group. For example, female wages in the United States are reportedly on average 18 cents lesser than male wages as of 2018. While this may not seem like much, it can quickly pile up. Discrimination in hiring is when someone is asked for personal questions regarding disabilities, sexual orientation, and childcare for parents, and being denied a job opportunity purely based on these responses. An example is if someone says they're gay in a job interview and the interviewer chooses not to give them the job purely based on the fact that they're gay. Being fired is more of a broad category, but for the sake of explaining, let's pretend for a moment that you are a female and you are pregnant. If your employer fires you because you are pregnant, this is a form of discrimination. The can also go unaware of you being injured and your employer fires you because of it. Finally, there's housing discrimination. This is when you are denied a house or apartment due to your age, sex, gender, etc. In the U.S., there are laws to protect the LGBTQ plus community members from discrimination in the workplace, but that does little to stop workplace discrimination. 22 states and 2 U.S. territories forbid workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation, and 21 states and 2 territories forbid discrimination based on gender identity. LGBTQ plus people are often denied health care due to their sexual orientation or gender identity, and some face rude and cruel language used during examinations. In a 2017 survey, 8% of gay, bisexual, and lesbian people reported refusal of care because of their identity. This number was 29% for transgender people. In another study done by the Center for American Progress and NORC, a research group from the University of Chicago, 54% of queer people were forced to hide in personal relationships due to discrimination. 55% of trans people avoid public situations for the same reason. More than 36 of LGBTQ plus people involved in the survey reported discrimination within a year. This number was 69% for non-binary people and 3 in 5 for transgender people. 67% of young LGBTQ plus people reported being discriminated against within the year. Reportedly, discrimination affected the mental state of 52 of LGBTQ plus respondents. This number was 77% for LGBTQ plus people of color. Due to the pandemic, depression from LGBTQ plus youth skyrocketed due to isolation and non-supportive and discriminatory homes. These numbers are crazy high. So, what can we do to help? I'll be covering more in this tomorrow's episode. For now, let's talk about gatekeeping. LGBTQ plus gatekeeping is when someone tries to control what identities are and aren't allowed in the LGBTQ plus community. A common example of this is the belief that bisexuality isn't real, which is false. People will often use excuses like, your identity is too complicated, or your identity is made up in an attempt to invalidate people. LGBTQ plus people face discrimination from their own community. You heard me right. Their own community. Another common sexuality that people see as fake is asexuality. If you remember back to episode 2, asexuality is when someone feels little or no sexual attraction whatsoever. People try to claim that asexuality doesn't fit in with the LGBTQ plus community. People are actively discriminating against asexual people, thereby proving the point that asexuals belong in the LGBTQ plus movement. Asexuals are outside of the norm, which is the entire point of the LGBTQ plus community, as I cover in the intro of every video in the series. There is no reason asexuals should not belong in the community, as they are actively being discriminated against and being called broken. People in the LGBTQ plus community try to separate themselves from transgender people and actively discriminate against them. People who are non-binary or agender are told their identity does not exist. People who are attracted to more than one gender, bisexual, pansexual, etc., are told they are faking it. And, I cannot stress this enough, they are being told this by their own community. Some of the founders of the gay rights movements were transgender women, and people are actively trying to exclude them from queer places and groups. People often try to control what pronouns people can and can't use. A lot of LGBTQ plus people get mad at people using neo-pronouns claiming they, quote-unquote, aren't real. Going back to episode 4, a neo-pronoun is a pronoun that isn't the standard she, her, he, him, they, them ones. Why people try to gatekeep things like this is beyond me. Who is it hurting? Why does it matter to you if someone uses a different pronoun? Are you upset that you have to learn how to properly respect someone? I just don't get it, and if someone knows, please explain it in the comments. Gatekeeping does nothing but divide the community. The entire premise of the LGBTQ plus community is people who are outside of the norm of society. By excluding those who are outside of the norm, you're doing nothing but causing unnecessary conflict. As Emma Stuflet said in their article about gatekeeping of pronouns in the LGBTQ plus community, quote, if the queer community is divided, then we lose a great deal of strength in our fight for equality. By banding together, we will be able to rise up and demand the rights that the queer community has been deprived of for far too long. Discrimination is something a lot of different groups face. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, etc., etc. It's getting us as a society nowhere. We're stuck in an endless loop of hatred and stereotyping and negativity, which contributes to why the world is how it is today. There is no need to put others down because they are different. No matter how scared you are, the irrational fear of people with a darker skin or people who are the same gender, they are still human. You, random discriminatory person on the internet, do not get to decide who is worthy of rights and being considered a human. With that, this concludes episode 7 of Aequalitatem, an LGBTQ plus educational video series. As stated earlier, all resources used will be in the description below. Feel free to comment down below any criticism, questions, or anything I left out. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Bye!